Live Arena in Raid Shadow Legends has always been a polarizing feature, but now with the release of Live Arena seasons, I think the problem is going to become a lot worse. With the seasons, what it means is at the end of every season, everybody starts at the same playing field. Except they're not. All the whales, the Krakens, have endgame gear. They have fully maxed out great halls. They have a roster full of mythical champions, fully awakened and fully empowered champions. So it's not really a level playing field. A lot of people are already scared of going into live arena. This will make it even worse. But here's the thing, Plarium can actually improve this game mode. Other games have made competitive PvP a lot more fun. An example that I like to draw is from Pokemon. What can Raid learn from Pokemon? Let's get into it. Hey guys, SMZ here, back playing Raid Shadow Legends. The topic of today is Live Arena and what I think are the biggest problems with it. I am going to talk about three biggest problems in the Live Arena and why a lot of people are discouraged from it. What you'll see running in the background is basically from a live stream of mine playing Live Arena battles back and forth. And I live stream regularly, both on YouTube and Twitch. So if you like my content, if you're watching these videos, and if you are free at one of the times I am streaming, feel free to drop by. I would love to have you there and chat with you. With that said, let's get into Live Arena. So, one of the biggest problems, the first biggest problem with Live Arena, in my opinion, is something that's called ladder anxiety. Now, this is a phenomenon that occurs with a lot of PvP games. I come from a background of Age of Empires 2. Age of Empires 2 is a game that everybody and the grandmother played at some point 20 years ago. Not a lot of people know that it still exists. It has a very competitive community. It has events ongoing. There was a whole tournament in a castle, in an actual medieval castle. It happens regularly. But the thing with even that game is the multiplayer part of that game is tiny compared to the people who play single player. And that happens everywhere because people hate losing, especially in a game in which you can find other areas of the game where you're playing against bots where it's relatively easy to beat. That's what's called ladder anxiety. Ladder refers to the ladder progression when it comes to the ELO matchmaking. So what, for example, in Raid Shadow Legends you have that number within the live arena based on which the matchmaking is done. That's essentially your elo, and based on that the matchmaking targets you against some opponent. Now, in a good matchmaking system, you should be winning approximately 50% of your fights. What that means is half of your fights you are going to be losing. And a lot of people just get discouraged from that. It's called ladder anxiety, and it's an actual thing. Competitive games like chess, Age of Empires 2, StarCraft 2, and a lot of other games, they all have studies and player reports of ladder anxiety. And in a lot of cases, it actually makes people not play the game at all. So it's a real thing. Now, in Raid, it's a lot worse. The reason for that is because Raid is mainly a PvE game, right? It has a lot of PvE game modes. Up until 2023, it was a fully PvE game mode. The PvP that did exist was not exactly PvP. So, for example, the classic arena, tag arena, and even the siege, it is PvP in a sense, but you are essentially fighting against not bot teams, but teams of other people, but who are being played by the bots on auto, even if it's by a preset. In a game that's largely PvE, you are used to winning. And when you lose against someone, it causes that anxiety and that discourages people from playing. Now, add on to that a couple of other factors that I'm going to talk about and makes the situation even worse. So, the second reason why people shy away from live arena, it is, of course, the pay to win gap, the whale problem, as I like to call it. Live arena is not fair, not at all. High spenders, they dominate because they have fully empowered champions, +4 Taurus, +4 Marichka, a lot of mythical champions, max level of awakenings, insane gear from both years of farming and years of spending, right? So it's not exactly a level playing field. The nicer thing about live arena that was happening fairly recently is that most of the whales and the krakens had settled in that upper echelon. So you were running into them very rarely in the lower stages, But now with live arena seasons, all of these whales you'll be encountering at the start of every month because they will be matching up against you until they climb back up, basically. So this is going to be a problem. And this discourages free to play players. This discourages any players who are low spenders from joining live arena. The rewards are nice, but then again, only the players who are spending in the game are the ones who are dominating, it kind of makes the rich richer in a way. So that adds on to the problem. I have posted a lot of videos about Marius, and some of the times the feedback I've gotten is sometimes negative about Marius, even though I like to say that Marius is essentially he's not a free champion. You can obtain him one day by doing a lot of stuff in the game, right? So you have to spend resources, but everybody can obtain him with enough time and enough time spent in the game, as well as the effort of doing those missions. But a lot of people basically they complain that they are not doing the Marius missions because a lot of the missions are locked behind live arena, and they hate doing live arena. And this is one of the biggest problems with it. Which brings me to problem number 3, which is the limited opening hours. So the live arena has a very few windows in the day, 4 windows to be exact, in which the live arena is actually accessible to players. Even right now, when I'm filming the video, live arena is shut down for the next 2 hours. They have improved this. Very recently, they have improved the length of those time windows, and which has improved things for sure, but it's still a problem. Most raid players, again, I've started making YouTube videos for a few months now, and I noticed that the age demographic that's interested in this is not the youngest people. Let's be honest here. And most of the people are in their working age. What that means is that they are rather restricted on time. They play raid on the side, it's running on the PC, on a phone on the side, even sometimes many people during their working hours, because it's PvE. So you can have it running in the background. If something goes wrong, it pauses for a second and you can take a look at it later on. With live arena, you can't really do that. Live arena, you actually have limited time windows in which you have to select teams, select champions and presets and do your turns. You can't really do that, right? So finding actual time to sit down and do live arena, that's actually a problem. So ideally, Plarium should make it open all the time. There will be wait times for certain hours of the day where there are not a lot of players, which should be fine. If you're waiting for 5 minutes for sometimes in the day, let's say 4 a.m. your time or something, that's fine. It's better than not having it open on times that when you will get a quick match anyhow. And we all know that there are bots in the live arena. So if you lose 3 or 4 battles in a row, you get matched against a bot. So it does exist. So if you really want to kill the downtime, you could technically add in a battle or two with a bot, for example, in the hours when there's not much traffic. Or you can, if you don't want to open it all the time, then you can just limit it to not opening at very few hours. It can be, so if your most activity is in, for example, in the Americas region, in the Bay region, it could be at the very night time hours of EMEA or North America, for example. Plarium can make that decision if they wanted to. A lot of games have it open all the time, even with smaller player bases. This game has a lot of players playing, and if you give them the proper incentive, they will play live arena. Now that I've listed 3 problems, there's no benefit to just listing problems. I work at a top tier strategic consulting firm, and I'm going to give you some consulting advice, Plarium. So take it or leave it. How to improve the live arena and what you can learn from one of the most successful franchises existing in the entire world, which is Pokemon. Pokemon, again, a lot of people associate with those cute, cuddly stuff, Pikachus and whatnot. But there's also a competitive side to Pokemon. A lot of players, there's humongous tournaments with a lot of prize money every single year, multiple times a year, with huge audiences. And it happens because they have game modes which allow you to regulate the skill cap. So it's not everybody and their grandmothers just spending all the money that they have to gain an advantage, which is kind of the case right now in Raid. So I'll give you 2 suggestions. Number 1 suggestion is, so competitive Pokemon battles, for example, have a flat rules or capped rules. Based on that, I want to extend the idea into Raid Shadow Legends. So what you could do is, in addition to the existing live arena and the season live arena seasons, for example, you can add a third game mode and call it a capped game mode. And that game mode can be more about skill. Of course, this game has RNG. Everything has a percentage chance of landing and whatnot. There's a 3% resist on everything. So that will always be there. But at least you take out the spending versus non spending part of the game. So what you do is you bring in champions, and those champions, they always will have to be level 60. But then you set a cap on gear, right? So, for example, there are four kinds of champions: attack, defense, support, and HP. So, for example, for attack champions, you can always say that the gear sets that they can get, they are always capped to, let's say, 5,000 attack or 6,000 attack. Similarly, crit damage is always capped to 300 crit damage and not more. Accuracy is always capped to 500, something like that. So provide those caps. And then in order to make it easier, what you can do is you allow, basically, either we are going for no empowerments at all and no awakenings, or you go for fully empower all champions, regardless of where you have them currently in your roster. In that game mode, they will be adjusted to be +4 awakened and level 6 level of blessing. That will also make a lot of people happy to see what the potential can be for some of those champions being at that level. For example, if I'm a new player who has just pulled a Seal of the Drakes, now I go into the fight with my Seal of the Drakes, and I can already see what she could look like if she gets to +4 empowerment with all the good gear in place. You can break this down into the different categories that you have of the gold 1, gold 2, gold 3, and all of these categories can have different caps. The caps can change. For example, in the silver caps, adjust the attack to be maximum 3000, crit damage maximum 200. And then all the way in gold 4 or gold 5, you can scale it up. You can make the attack be 7,000 or 8,000, crit damage be 350, for example. So you can adjust that scaling as well, so that the end game players don't feel like, oh, I'm fighting now with these champions who are hitting like a wet noodle. We don't want to convey that as well. So there's a way that you can make this happen. This will allow more or less gap in the players when it comes to spending, and a more playing field when it comes to the skill setup. You can really test out your skill. This can be an additional game mode. Do not replace this kind of game mode with the existing game mode, because what you have, A, it's legacy you want to keep, and B, it's an incentive for players to spend, right? You don't want to take that away, obviously. That's your money making source. You don't want to kill that. So that's idea number one. Now, idea number two is also from Pokemon, and from Pokemon's Battle Factory game mode. So what Battle Factory is in Pokemon, you go into this game mode, and there you can basically get rental champions. So champions that you don't own. So what I would recommend is you can have a game mode, again, in addition, not substituting, in which you are getting a randomized roster of champions. 5 champions that both players get picked randomly from the entire pool of champions. It can be any champion, right? And you can have rules in there, is that you have a slot of 5 pick, for example, or 4, let's say. You can still do the banning system, that 5 are selected and then you ban one. You can do 1 attack, 1 defense, 1 support, 1 which one am I missing? 1 HP champion, for example. Or you can do, for example, a turn meter booster, a setup champion, a lockout champion, and a nuker. Something like that. Both players get a pool of randomized champions, again with a level set gear. So gear idea is from the same first recommendation, that cap it out based on if it's silver 1 or it's gold 4, but get them randomized champions. That also increases engagement. That increases engagement from your free to play players, from your low spending players, because they will get access to champions in that game mode that they are never gonna pull. For example, I would love to get some of the mythical champions. One of the recent mythical champions, the undead mythical champion that has been introduced in the game. I really think that she's really good. I probably will not never be able to pull her. I would love to play with her in a battle or two. So this kind of gives that incentive. It drives engagement into the game. I know that your money making source is going to be your high spenders, and they will be there. But the free to play base does add to the engagement, does add to your numbers, your high downloads, your number of active players, and all of those metrics. And those metrics are what allow you to showcase those metrics in your financial reports, for example. It does improve your valuation, for example. So you need to please both player bases, and you can do that with a very good PvP game mode within this game. And this will also, in addition to all the benefits, this will improve the longevity of this game. I know that Raid was recently acquired by a Swedish company, and from what I have seen, in personal opinion, they've made a lot of better changes in the game recently compared to what previously Plarium has been doing. So I am hopeful and I'm cautiously optimistic about the future, anyways. And one of the things that I read when from their acquisition brief was that they want to invest in it long term. They see this as a long term game. And this is one of the ways you can really boost the longevity of a game. Again, I'll come back to the example of Age of Empires 2. Extremely old game. Most people think it's dead. It's not. It was kept alive by the competitive multiplayer community. And that community, if they have all these features available in the game, if they can get access to a lot of these things in the game, they will be very loyal. They will be very loyal followers of your game. They will keep your game alive for a long, long time. I know I'm going into a rant, but those are kind of the two suggestions that I have in mind. Live Arena, it's not going away, but it needs changes to be fun for everybody. We have two new gear sets as part of Live Arena seasons. Again, not a lot of people are going to get those gear sets. And again, the ones who do get it are already at the top. That will just make sure that they remain at the top, and then they push the differential even more. So this is not healthy for the longevity of the game. This also makes you, as a company, spend a lot of money on your marketing to be constantly getting fresh players, because the older players who are in the free to play band or low spending band, they just leave the game because they get frustrated. So take note of this, make changes, and improve the game mode. I really enjoy this game. I would love to keep playing for a long time. Even as an end game player, I enjoy every update that Plarium has been pushing out recently. But we want to make sure the PvP game mode is actually really good and stays for long. Thank you very much for watching till the end. And what do you think? What, in your opinion, are some of the bigger problems with Live Arena? Do you think Live Arena seasons will actually change this? Am I completely off? Let me know in the comments. And yeah, share your thoughts about where do you see Live Arena changing in the future. I would love to read through that. Thank you very much once again, and see you next time.